Hey guys, what's up? It's Not Pockets here, and I'm coming at you with a Destiny 2 exotic tier list. A lot of good guns here. It's gonna be hard to rank them all. A couple trash guns though, easy to rank. But we're gonna go in order down here. Uh, and I'm going to try to be not too biased, but we'll just see what happens. Okay, so first weapon, the Suros Regime. Um, Personally, not a gun I use very often. I'm gonna give it uh so C is an average gun. I'd say I might even say that this gun is a bit below average because personally I don't think the clip is as big as it should be. I think if it had a bigger clip size it'd be higher on the tier list, but you kind of go through your ammo really quick and it just doesn't do enough damage, and it's just outclassed by a lot of weapons on this tier list, so that's why I'm going to have to give it a D rank. Next weapon we're going to go with is the Sweet Business, another auto rifle. Um, this one, I definitely like using this one better than Sarah's Regime. It has a bigger mag, and that makes it a little better. That means you can shoot longer. That means it's a good gun. The more you can shoot it, the more that, you can kill. Next weapon is Wish Ender. Um, I don't know if you guys are gonna agree with me on this one, but I want to put it on S tier, but I think it's about an A tier weapon. It's one of my personal favorites. It's slow, but it hits like a truck. You can do a lot of damage with this. It's just a really good weapon, other than, its rate of fire. It just does so much damage. It takes a bit time to charge up, but you can get a lot of damage done really quick. You know what I mean? It does a lot of burst damage. Next one is the Ace of Spades. Personally, eh, I think this gun's for scrubs. You know, it's a good it's a good gun. It's above average. But I think this gun is really just for scrubs, so I don't really use it too often. I might even say that it's, a crutch for bad players. But it is nice because if you are getting kills with this, it'll just keep reloading itself, which is nice. Next on the list is the Crimson. Honestly, this gun is pretty trash. It doesn't do enough damage. It really isn't very special. There's just a lot better. I think I'd probably prefer like any other hand cannon to the Crimson, honestly. Alright, next one is the Maleficence. I don't use this one very often. Um, it's almost as bad as the Crimson, but I think it's at least a little bit. It at least fills some sort of niche, whereas the Crimson is just good for nothing. This is really good if you want to take it into like Gambit, but otherwise, pick something else. All right, the next weapon, the Sturm. This is really good. I think it's not better than the Ace of Spades. I don't know. I definitely prefer taking this over the Ace of Spades. It's really, really good in PvE. It's also good. It's just good all around, honestly. But you know, it's an A tier. It's A tier for sure. It's I'd say it's even better than the Ace of Spades. All right, next weapon. It's the last word. What can I say? You know, the last word, one of the best weapons in the game. You know, it's really good if you're like an ADD kid and you gotta run around and just shoot all the time. You know, it reloads fast, does a lot of damage. I don't have anything bad to say about the last word. I use it all the time. It's just a great weapon. It's absolutely insane. The Thorn is the next weapon. I'm gonna put this as a D weapon. I think this is, you know, a scrubs weapon. You know, it's not really worth it. You know, to unlock it, you know, to get it, it's just not worth it. It's not good enough to bother, you know, trying to get it, trying to find it, you know, working towards the thorn. It's just, it's not good enough to justify the effort that you have to put in. And it's just not as good as some of the other hand cannons out there. I think you really need to look for something else. Alright, so the next weapon is the Arbalist. The Arbalist, you know, I don't really like to use it, but it's fine. It's probably not my weapon of choice, but I wouldn't say that it's a bad weapon. So I'm just gonna sit it at C. I don't even really use it, you know. It's just okay, I guess. Next weapon is the Outbreak Perfected. This gun, it's at least, I don't know if it's better than the Arbalist, but you know, I think it looks much cooler than the Arbalist. And, you know, I think it's easier to get. So I think it's a B. You know, it's niche, but I think it's still pretty good. The Vigilance Wing, on the other hand, I don't think this weapon is good. The way it shoots is weird. It feels bad. It's just not a fun weapon to use. It just doesn't do enough damage. I don't know. It's hard to use. Not to say that you can't use it, but I think you should be using better weapons than the Vigilance Wing. Next weapon, the Meta Multi-Tool. This is a very weird weapon. Uh, I don't really like it. It it's just, I don't know. It doesn't really do anything. It's just not very great. And then, but on the other hand, though, it's better than the Jade Rabbit. You know, you could be using the Jade Rabbit. At least, you know, Meta Multi-Tool, you're not just straight throwing the game. If you pick the Jade Rabbit, you're basically throwing the game. The Chaperone. The Chaperone, I think, is insane. The Chaperone is one of the best weapons in the game. It does an insane amount of damage. It has so much range. It's like the fucking KSG from Black Ops 3. You know, you shoot people across the map with this shit. It's insane. Right, next we have the Rat King. You know, I really like the Rat King. I don't know if it's S tier, but it's really good. You know, when you hit someone in the head with the Rat King, you know, that's a good feeling. That does some damage. And then the poison on it, that does a lot of damage. So, the Rat King is really good. Not as good as these, but it's up there for sure. Alright, next we have the Izanagi's Burden. Uh, I think this gun is trash. I think it's just not good. It really doesn't do. It's like the fucking what's it called? The Bizarre Bargain from TF2, and I hate that shit. You know, it rewards people who are, you know, skilled and getting kills, but unless you're cheating, this gun is just, you can't be that consistently good, like landing headshots, and it's really not good. It doesn't do enough damage. It's just, you're outclassed taking the sniper rifle. So Just just don't. Alright, next is the Huckleberry. This is a very fun weapon to use. Uh, it's pretty easy to unlock. It's really fun. It does a lot of damage, you know. When you get right up in someone's face with the Huckleberry, you know, you start tearing them apart. So, I think the Huckleberry is a pretty good gun. Probably, it's definitely one of the better SMGs. It's definitely worthy of B tier. It might even be worthy of A tier, but you know, I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna put in the B tier. Um, the hard light. Hard light is honestly pretty generic. It's just it's just an okay gun. You know, that doesn't really do anything special. Doesn't really do anything crazy. The hard light is, you know, there's a lot of auto rifles in the game. You know, there's a lot of rifles that you could be taking instead of the hard light. The next bow on the list, we have the Le Monarac. This is another really good bow. This bow makes you feel like you're playing Hanzo, you know. You're just slinging out arrows left and right, you know. You can put out a lot of damage really quick with this one. Uh, doesn't chunk people as much as the Wish Ender, but, you know, they're pretty close. I honestly, I don't know which one I would rather take, the Wish Ender or the Le Monarac. I don't know. They're both very good bows, though. Trinity Ghoul, though, eh, it's it's good, but I wouldn't say it's better than either of the other bows. It's fine, but it's just you could be taking better bows if you're gonna go with bows. All right, next up is the Jotun. This gun is it's pretty average. I probably wouldn't run it in anything other than PvE. It's just, it's average. It's probably not worth the effort of unlocking it, because there's easier to unlock weapons that are probably better than it. So I think it's worthy of C tier, because it's not a bad weapon, but there's just better choices out there. Next up, we have the Merciless. The Merciless, I'd say, is just a noob gun. You know, if you're a good player, you don't really need to be using the Merciless because it doesn't really offer that much other than, like, oh, it charges faster. Like, ooh, oh boy. I don't know. I just don't think it's very great. I think it's good if you're starting out, but, you know, who's starting out in Destiny 2 right now? It's very noob friendly. It's just, but when you start getting, you know, higher in the ranks, it just doesn't really match up to some of the other options out there. Next up is the Telesto. This is one of the first weapons I ever got, so it kind of holds a special place in my heart. I want to place it higher than C tier where it belongs, but honestly, it's just a C tier weapon. You know, it's okay. It's not very exciting. It could do a lot of damage, but it's just not too interesting. Maybe that's just because I've had to use it for so long, and I don't know. I get sentimental with the Telesto, but it's just an okay weapon. Next up is the Fighting Lion. Fighting Lion is kind of a lucker weapon. You know, as far as grenade launchers go, you're bound to just get some kills randomly. Luckily, just, you know, tossing them randomly around. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's a very random weapon. Doesn't really benefit skilled players, but I've seen some players put in a lot of work with it. So it's not a bad grenade launcher, but it's just very, very lucky, I guess. Next up is the Sunshot. The Sunshot is really good. The Sunshot makes hunting people really, really easy, you know. You can always find someone. You never lose somebody in combat, you know. You can't run away from the Sunshot, you know. And the burn that it does, it kind of hurts, you know. The Sunshot is definitely a good weapon. It's probably not better than these other hand cannons, but the Sunshot is still very good. I've definitely destroyed with the Sunshot. It's not so good in PvE, but you know, PvP, you know, Gambit Prime. I really like to take the Sunshot. It's a really good hand cannon. I'm a little biased towards the hand cannons, but I just think there's a lot of really good options as far as hand cannons go. Alright, next up we have, oh fuck, the Graviton Lance. Graviton Lance is below average. It's really common. It's not too unique, you know. Even the weapon isn't very unique looking. It's just, there's much better options. You know, eventually you'll find something better than the Graviton Lance, but when you're starting out, you know, it's okay. The Polaris Lance, honestly, I don't think the Polaris Lance is very good. I think most people would agree that the Polaris Lance is, I'd say it's probably an F tier. You know, the mag is not very big. Um, it only rewards people who are really good at landing headshots. It's just, I don't know. As far as scout rifles go, I think it's probably the worst one. Honestly, you know, it's really not worth the effort of finding it in the first place. It's just so much work for just a bad weapon. It's just not good. Just doesn't do damage. Doesn't have a lot of bullets in the mag. Doesn't shoot very fast. It it's just not very good. The Skyburner's Oath. I think the Skyburner's Oath is a really good weapon. It it just chunks people, honestly. Does a lot of burst damage. It just it's probably one of the best pulse rifles in the game. It's just good. It's just a good weapon. Next up, we had the Lord of Wolves. I think as far as shotguns go, one of the worst shotguns in the game. I think everyone would probably agree that the Lord of Wolves is not very good. I frequently rant about how just bad the Lord of Wolves is, especially because it was one of my first shotguns, and I wanted to use it, but it was just so bad. I couldn't make it work for the life of me. Fuck the Lord of Wolves. Next up is the Borealis. The Borealis, it's pretty good. It's very just all around good. You know, it doesn't excel in anything in particular. It's just very good all around. It's like a jack of all trades, honestly. Next up is the Risk Runner. I think if you're playing PvE, this is a must take. This is honestly one of the best weapons for PvE. It's just, it does a lot of damage really quick. It's really good for clearing out ads. Like, if you're not taking the Risk Runner, I think you're really just putting yourself at a disadvantage. Next up is another really good weapon. It's the Cold Heart. This shit reminds me of like the Spartan laser, because this thing chunks. It does fat damage.
It's honestly so fun to use in PvP. Pretty much every mode of PvP. I wouldn't I wouldn't be mad about taking the cold heart, you know. It's just it does insane amounts of damage. It's so fun to use. Easily S tier. Next up is another trace rifle, the Prometheus lens. This one is not it's not even close to as good. It's just it's hard to really use it effectively considering it's a trace rifle. It just what are you gonna trace with this shitty fucking sniper rifle? It's not even bad. It does good damage. It has a good clip size, but I don't know. You're just so slow with it. You know, it doesn't do as much damage. It's just not as good. Next up, we have the 1000 Voices. This gun is really fun to use, but I think it's really hard to make it work. I think it charges too slowly. You know, you're just gonna get bodied before you get it off. It's just, it's not very practical. It's very fun, but it's not very practical to use. Next up, we have the Anarchy. I think this is just a really bad grenade launcher. It's just, it really doesn't do a whole lot. You know, your grenades just don't do much. It's just, I don't know. It's just, it's not fun to use. It's not really interesting. It's not very strong. It's just a bad grenade launcher. There's just better choices for grenade launchers. Next up, we have the Colony. This is kind of a noober weapon, but you know, it's too good. You know, you just throw it around a corner and you're gonna get a kill. That's just how it is. It's a lot of work to unlock, but you know, I think it's really worth it. It's just a really fun to use, very strong grenade launcher. I'd say it's probably the best grenade launcher in the game. So that's why it's going to be A tier easily. I want to put it at S tier, but it's just a lot of work to unlock. Next up, we have the Prospector. Uh, it's it's okay. You know, you could do a lot of burst damage up close, but I don't know. It's not as good as the Colony, and it's probably equally difficult to unlock it. At least it was for me. So that's why I think it's only C tier. You know, it's strong. It does a lot of damage, but it's nowhere near close to the Colony. Next up, we have the Sleeper Simulant. This shit actually reminds me of a Spartan laser. It's very fun to use. You just kind of fucking, you just kind of fucking blast it around corners and shit, and you'll probably you'll probably just chip damage them, but that's just really it's just really annoying to play against, honestly. If you know the angles to play with this, then it's really annoying to fight. I'm not particularly good at using it. I don't use it very often, but it's solid. It's good enough. Next we have the Queen Breaker. I'd say if this gun was good in PvE, I'd say it's an S tier, but it's only an A tier just because of how effective it is with its special, you know. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's a very support kind of rifle. And if you're playing with a team of people, you know, you could put in some serious work. You're more of a support player using this. It's extremely effective, but it's just not useful at all in PvE. So I'm gonna put it with an S tier. Or not S tier, A tier. Now here we have a good gun. This is a good ass gun. This is easily S tier. The Thunderlord has so much damage It has a good fire rate. It has a good clip size. It honestly has everything that you need in a machine gun. It's honestly just, it's a gun that I expect to get nerfed because I think that special is really good. It's just everything about it is good, and everything about the Wardcliffe coil is not good. Using this gun is essentially just a death sentence for you. It is really hard to be effective with this. I think, as far as rocket launchers go, this is honestly the hardest one to use. Not to say that you can't use it, but it's just, it's easy to, it's like noob bait. It's easy to get, it looks cool, you know, the idea of it is cool, but it just fucking sucks. And then we have an actually good rocket launcher. This is probably, it's somewhere, if I could put it between A and B tier, I would. But I'm gonna put it at B tier because I don't really use rocket launchers very often. But fighting against the two-tailed fox is really obnoxious because they'll find you and they will absolutely chunk you. It's hard to really like play against, but it's also hard to use, I would say. You know what? I'm gonna put it at A tier. It's honestly pretty strong. I don't like it. I think it's annoying. I complain about it when I fight it, but I complain about it because it's good. Next we have the Legend of Acreus. I'd say this is probably a D. I think as far as shotguns go, this one isn't particularly crazy. It's pretty good for newer players. You're pretty likely to get it early on, but it gets outclassed pretty quickly. It does a lot of damage, but the fire rate is so slow, and the magazine isn't very big, so I'd say it's probably just slightly below average. Next, we have the tractor cannon. Pretty trash. It's annoying to fight against, but that's all it really is. It's like a wasp, Nah, because a wasp can at least sting you. It's not even a wasp. It's just a fly, It's flying around your plate of food. You just keep swatting at it. You're like, go away, stop. Like, what are you even doing? Like, why are you trying to use this gun? And you like swat it away, but it just keeps annoying you. Its only existence is just to annoy you. Otherwise, it's useless. It's not even very good for a support weapon. Next, we have the Darcy. Also, another bad weapon. Not very good for. Not really. I mean, it has a lot of range, but you're just gonna get run over using this thing. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage. It's just very accurate, and you're pretty mobile, but the benefits it gives you are not very important, especially if you're like good at the game. Next, we have the Whisper of the Worm. Probably the best sniper rifle in the game. Honestly, it does insane amounts of damage. It's like a high risk, high reward, I'd say. So the better you are with sniper rifles, the more work you'll really put in with the Whisper of the Worm. It's a lot of work to unlock, but personally, I think it's really worth it. It's good in PvP, it's good in PvE, it's just all around really good, and it absolutely chunks. The only gripe I have with it is the limited amount of ammo, but I think it actually makes up for that, and it just has insane damage. It just really makes up for it. Alright, next we have the two swords. It's honestly really hard for me to rank these because I don't even use swords. I don't really like swords. I think I just feed every time I go in with a sword. But if I were to decide, I'd say the Black Talon has more range, but I think it's probably about a D tier. I think trying to use the Black Talon as a death sentence, it's fun to use, but it's honestly not more fun to use than the Worldline Zero. I'd say the Worldline Zero is about an average weapon. It's very fun and unique, and it's like, it's almost like a meme weapon where it's like you essentially are just like teleporting, like dodging through bullets and shit, and it's like you feel like a badass, but you're really not doing a whole lot with it. It's just it's hard to use any of the swords effectively. So that will wrap it up for my tier list. Let me know what you think in the comments. This is objectively probably the best tier list for Destiny 2 legendaries. I think
Exotic
most of the
weapons.
weapons, I think at least more than half of, I'd say, from C to S, these are all viable. D, you can make them work. Like D and below, you can make them work. Just don't use the Jade Rabbit. You can't make that work, trust me. Um, but they're just hard to really utilize. That's gonna finish off the video. Peace out. Fuck you.